further ado, I'd like to say Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah to the CICC community and welcome Dr. Wahid.
Jazakallah khair, Sohail bhai. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Sohail bhai, can you see my screen?
Yes, you can see your screen, and we can also see the presentation. I'm going to put my video off so that only you're on the screen.
Okay, and you can see me as well?
I can see you.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, and Sohail bhai, you're recording as well?
Yes, I am indeed.
Okay, fine. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I am Dr. Zahid Wahid. I am a consultant in chronic pain and anesthesia here in our local hospital in Colchester, UK. And the topic of today's talk is higher mortality, higher disease prevalence, more suffering, lesser quality of life, and lesser life expectancy. This is the reality of health for most of us. And what can we do about it? If you have the same question as I have, then this talk is for you. If you believe that we do have higher suffering, but there is nothing that we can do about it, please give me a chance to convince you otherwise, because there is a lot that we can do about it. And if you think that this doom and gloom scenario isn't real, then you're in for a shock. It is as real as it gets. Right. Could everybody mute their mics?
Can I get everybody to mute their microphones, please? I might actually mute everybody for a second and then I'll unmute you. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, if you can unmute yourself, brother.
Right, okay. Right, so I have got a few disclaimers. One is, although I work as a professional in the NHS, this talk is not a replacement for professional advice. I am not your diabetes doctor. I am not your heart doctor. I am not your chest doctor, and I am not your GP. Although the talk would supplement a lot of the professional advice, it is not meant to replace any of the professional advice. I have no conflict of interest. My only interest is to improve myself, my family, and my extended family. And that's why I am doing this talk. There are no copyrights. A copy of the presentation would be available for anyone who wants it. And I believe the lecture is also being recorded, which should be available from the CICC's Facebook page in due course. Then I have a few people to thank. Dr. Chris Rufford, he is a consultant senior lecturer in sports and exercise medicine and physical activity champion for Public Health England. He was very kind to give him a copy of his presentation in full, and I have used some of his data and slides in making this talk today. And Mr. Choksi, who had introduced me, you all know him. He is the chairperson of the CACC and a consultant vascular surgeon. I am very grateful to him for nudging me and encouraging me to give this talk and do quite a lot of the homework behind the scenes to make it happen. I am also quite indebted to my parents, whose kindness we cannot repay back. But I think my passion for people to quit smoking comes from my late father, who at one stage in his life was chain smoking up to 40 to 60 cigarettes per day. Right, now the question is that this doom and gloom scenario, which is looking worse on every front, whether it is life expectancy, whether it is mortality, whether it is quality of life, whether it is the incidence of disease, it is looking worse on all these fronts. Is this real? So the chart that you see, this is chart of countries and regions by life expectancy at birth. So in 2018, any child born in these countries, average life expectancy. Okay, could everybody please mute themselves, please? So you can see the first 15, 16, 17 countries. None of these is a Muslim majority country. If you look at the incidence of diabetes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, obesity, again, the incidence in the Muslim world is 1.5 to 2.5 times higher than the average English white population. Obviously, the incidence varies with the disease and varies also with the country as well as the region. But nonetheless, majority, if not all of the Muslim countries are significantly higher in terms of the prevalence of these risk factors. Now, obviously, we have got a calamity which is facing us nowadays, which is COVID-19. If you look at the death rate from COVID-19, and we have got data from UK from the early phase of COVID-19, if you are a male of Indian origin, you are 1.7 times more likely to die than the white English male. So that is about 70% higher death rate. If you are of Bengali origin from Bangladesh, you are about 2.5 times more likely to die. And if you're of Pakistani origin, you are 3.2 times more likely to die from COVID-19. Now you ask yourself why this is the case. Why do we have, sorry, I'm just going to stop somebody's video. Why do we have higher mortality? Why do we have such poor health? Do you think this is our healthcare system back home? No, this is not the healthcare system. My son was born in this country, and at birth, his average life expectancy was 10 years less than the white English boy born in the same year. So you really can't blame the healthcare system for such a big discrepancy. Is it in our genes? Are we genetically determined to have higher suffering and higher disease prevalence, higher mortality? Although the science is not very clear on this, even if it is a factor, it is likely to be a very small factor. And not only that it's a small factor, it is something that we can't change much. So I think we should rather concentrate on the things which are much bigger contributor to our mortality and suffering. And there's a lot that we can do about this. Is this our destiny? You know, the Islamic thinking, this is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's nothing we should or we can do about it. Nothing could be further from truth regarding this. This is not our destiny, and there are reasons within our cultures, within our habits that we can change to improve this. Now, I am going to cover various different topics. Some will be taking lesser time, some will be taking more time. These topics are actually very huge topics. People have written books on these topics. There's no way I can cover each topic in full detail. So I will be touching various different aspects today. So the tobacco smoking. If you go to Islamic countries, go to Turkey, Morocco, Egypt, UAE, Middle East, you go to Pakistan, you see many people who are smoking there. And there has been a lot of public health campaign regarding this. A lot of that has been done by the WHO, and people all across the world know that smoking is bad for you and you got to quit. But then how do you do that? There are obviously various different ways of doing it. There are self-help tips. I have intentionally kept the font small because these are all available online, and this is not something that I have sort of made up myself. I have used a lot of these tips when I talk to smokers, but I must say that I change this a lot based on our culture and our religion. It gives it a different spin, and people can relate more to those things rather than just something that you pick up from a non-Muslim Western country. Then there are many of these nicotine replacement therapies, although it's not a good idea to get out of one bad habit and get into another bad habit. But a lot of these therapies are a temporizing measure, like these nicotine patches or nicotine chewing gums, and people will not usually stay on these for long. They just help you to sort of get over the difficult period. However, the e-cigarettes, which are also nicotine replacement therapies, they are slightly different because we have seen people getting out of one habit and getting into the habit of e-cigarettes. The medical community, however, thinks, and rightly so, that the degree of harm from tobacco smoking is much higher than the e-cigarettes, so perhaps it is a lesser evil to accept. There are some medicines as well, which can sort of get you over the difficult period. And then there is motivational interviewing. I learned motivational interviewing quite a few years ago. And although you can use motivational interviewing for a lot of the things, uh, all the long-term medical conditions, but also to improve physical performance in professional athletes. But I must say that I have used motivational interviewing exclusively on smokers with some good results. One thing that I realized that in Pakistan, you had to sort of change the tack a lot, and because people's views and their ideas are quite different. But I did have some very good results with this. Now, what is the effect of smoking? What is the magnitude of the effect of smoking? How bad is it? So this is a graph that I really like because it's a simple graph and it tells you the top 5 non-communicable disease risk factors which contribute to death in high-income countries. And we are going to see this graph more than once today. As you can see, tobacco is top of the list out of these top 5 non-communicable risk factors contributing to death. Right, next is obesity. Although I do not have a lot of data regarding obesity, but it is about 1.5 to 2.5 times commoner in our countries. Again, I am going to put a graph which will sort of give you some idea of where we stand in the world regarding this. So this is the WHO data on the mean BMI. It is a few years old now from 2014. But if you look at the first 15 countries, out of these, 4 are Muslim majority countries. And to be honest with you, the remaining 11 countries, I don't even know most of them. I mean, I don't know what is this. Never heard of their names. St. Kitts and Nevis, Kiribati, Tuvalu, names that you never heard. The only names that are familiar are Muslim majority countries. They're actually not 4, they're 5. Kuwait, Qatar, Egypt, UAE, and Jordan. Sorry, I think because somebody was not muted, I was muted. Okay, so the health effects of being overweight and obese, they are quite profound. It increases death rate due to any cause. All-cause mortality is increased. Risk of developing high blood pressure is increased. Your cholesterol levels become deranged. You are at higher risk of developing diabetes if you are obese. You get more heart disease, more risk of stroke, gallbladder disease, problem with your joints, knees and hips, breathing difficulties, many types of cancer, low quality of life, mental illness, unexplained body pain and difficulty with your body functioning. There's loads that being overweight and obese contributes to. Americans have done studies looking at your risk of dying while crossing the road if your BMI was high. If your BMI was above 40, which will put you in the category of morbidly obese, then it also increases your risk of dying from crossing the road. This is how bad it is. Now, the effect of obesity. If you look at this chart again, which shows you top 5 non-communicable risk factors contributing towards death, you can see obesity is number 3 on the chart. Right, now I am going to very briefly touch on this. As you could imagine, this is not a topic that anybody could cover in such a short time. And as they say, there are many ways to skin a cat. There are many ways to lose weight. There are many, more than I can sort of think to count. But I think there are few generalizations that are true. There is an old saying that you cannot outrun your calories. That is very true. I do chronic pain for a living. This is where my expertise lies. And I can't tell you how many people come and tell me that, doctor, I am putting on weight because I can't exercise because of bad back or a bad knee or whatever chronic pain problem they have. That is not true in vast majority of the cases. in vast majority of the cases, you put on weight because of what you eat. And I will give you an example, a personal example. This is from 2016. I was visiting China, and I had only about 2-3 days left in Beijing, and there were quite a few things that I had to do that day. So this is my number of steps from that day. I walked more than 38,000 steps and more than 26 kilometers. But look at the number of calories that if, if you see the number of calories that I spent by doing all that walking of more than 26 kilometers, it is only just over 1,600 calories. Now, I think I wouldn't have done that much walk more than a dozen times in my entire life. But this number of calories I probably eat every day, all my life. To give you an idea, it is not easy to outrun your calories unless you are like Mo Farah or you're running a marathon once every week. For majority of us, you will not be able to outrun your calories. Okay. Right, so we are going to look at your nutrition and diet. Again, this is a big subject. And I don't think I'm going to be able to talk everything about this subject, but I'll talk about general principles. About 2 years ago, Dr. Sharif, one of our consultant neurologists, he gave an excellent lecture, Nutrition, Lifestyle, and Islam. The lecture is there on YouTube, on the CICC's YouTube channel. It is about 1 hour and 40 minutes, but every minute of that is worth watching. This lecture was given long before anybody knew about COVID-19. So perhaps the lecture could be sort of redesigned or redelivered with a bit more spin regarding immunity and disease and COVID-19. But nonetheless, the advice is still very sound in that. Then the question is, what should we not eat? I think as a general principle, whatever God has made for us, it is excellent. And when men improve that excellent stuff, they improve it for their pockets only. For our health, it becomes worse. The more anything is processed, the worse it is for your health. And this is a generalization that is almost invariably true. So all that stuff from your bakery, all the processed things, all the processed meat even, these are not healthy for your life. People have looked at the chicken content of chicken nuggets, and some of the chicken nuggets have less than 15% of chicken in it. So, the 85% is something else. So everything that is processed is not good for your health. All the sugary stuff, all the artificial sweeteners, whatever has been baked, what should be eaten. That really is comes from the first factor that I was saying, that whatever is natural. So that will be your vegetables, your fruit, your poultry, your eggs, fish, meat, milk, vinegar, honey, black seed, these sort of things which are good for your health. Now, there is a lot of information regarding foods which can boost your immunity. And if there was one time where you needed your immunity to be at its best, it is now, because of the epidemic of coronavirus. You want your immunity to be at its best. So you should be eating these foods which boost your immunity. Similarly, there are foods which are helpful in reducing your inflammation. So if you have got early arthritis in your knees or hips, like I have in one of my knees, these foods can be helpful. I remember when we were young, if anybody sprained their ankle, they will make a little paste of turmeric and put it on the sprained ankle. Turmeric is very good anti-inflammatory, as the science tells us now. I'm going to touch a little bit on supplements. This is a talk in itself, a long topic, but I'm just going to give a brief summary. And I think I'm going to put my neck on the block by saying that you must take vitamin D. I will come to that later, why I think that is the case, but I think it is quite useful. There are various different reasons why I say that, and one reason I think is that the increased death rate in our population is because of higher vitamin D deficiency, although it has not been proven yet beyond any doubt, but more and more experts are being inclined towards vitamin D replacement in ordinary people. And if you talk to more and more experts or listen to them, majority of them would be taking these supplements regularly themselves. We were having a discussion a few weeks ago, and there is a center in America who are giving high dose vitamin D to all their surgical patients, 50,000 international units on the day of surgery, 50,000 a week before, and 50,000 2 weeks before surgery. Similarly, there are these yogurts which have got active biocultures, which are supposed to enhance your immunity, which will probably fall into that category of boosting your immunity. And all the yogurts that we eat in our household nowadays are the ones which have got these live cultures, live biocultures. Right, I hope everybody is still awake and still with us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I have crossed off exercise. A lack of exercise is a big factor. The reason I crossed off exercise is it just gives that wrong impression that you are going to a gym and you are sort of carrying 100 kgs of weight and you're doing it, every day, 2 hours, and every day a week. No, that's not true. What you really want to do is do physical activity. Now, the data regarding physical activity is not easy to gather. And obviously with different countries and different people and all that, there is not a lot of data, but I'm going to give you an example. Last year when I went to Pakistan, 5 of my nephews, all boys, I gathered them and I asked them to do push-ups. And 4 out of 5 did 0 push-ups, no push-ups whatsoever. They went down, they couldn't come back up. They were quite young, aged from 8 to about 17 years of age. At that young age, they improved very quickly because I said that you're not going to have your dinner unless you do 10 push-ups. So they improved very quickly, but it is so prevalent. And I took them around on the running track as well. Despite being less than third my age, they couldn't run with me. So I think this problem is quite endemic. Is lack of exercise a problem? If we are, and there are some people who don't exercise, but they are still slim. This is a big problem. Now, I'm going to come to the same slide that I said I really like. It is simple and sort of brings it to the fore. What are the top risk factors? And you see physical inactivity or lack of physical activity is the 4th commonest contributor to death in high-income countries. Now, I'm going to skip this slide. I'm going to go to the next slide, which I think is more useful. So this is the effect of physical activity on reducing risk. Okay. So if you look at the first part, it is reducing death from any cause. And look at the risk reduction up to 30%. And if you look at the column on the right-hand side, this column, the evidence base for this is very strong, apart from one, which is reduction in your cognitive function, where it is moderate. But for rest, everything else, there is strong evidence. Look at bone fractures. The risk reduction up to 66%, depression, 50%. And I don't think that many medicines can actually match that effect. And even if they can, they are not really matching that effect. And I'll come to that later in a minute. Now, Public Health England has designed some leaflets for physical activity for adults and older children. In fact, there are quite a few of these leaflets. They even have a leaflet for toddlers, for pregnant women, for disabled people. And it sort of gives you an idea how much you should do and all that. But I don't want you to sort of get bogged down with these numbers of how much activity you should do and what sort of activity that would be. I'll come to that in a minute, why that is. But the recommendation is that you should, on average, do 150 minutes of moderate activity every week. But I think the bottom line for this is every minute counts. Even if you do some physical activity, that is good. If you do more, that is better. If you're not doing any physical activity now, any physical activity would be better than what you're doing now, which is nothing. Now, this next graph is going to sort of relate back to what I have said, that, the figure that they've come up with, 150 minutes of physical activity. Just ignore this, this thing at the bottom, which is sort of a clever way of figuring out how much exercise work you are putting into your body. And on this end, this is the years of life that you gained. And as you can see, the biggest gains are in people who were not doing anything and started doing roughly about 150 minutes per week. If you do more, you still have gains, but these gains are not as steep as they were in this part. But again, you can look at this in terms of what sort of physical activity would do what sort of improvement in your muscle function, in your bone health, and in your balance. And as you get older, balance becomes very important, because when you are older, preventing falls is one of the mainstays of preventing harm to you. This is for really those people who are already doing physical activity. For those people who are not doing physical activity, you really got to start, and you got to start doing anything. And it doesn't matter really what you do as long as you start doing it. Different countries have embraced this concept in a different way. If you talk of green prescriptions in UK, that means the color of the paper on which your prescription is written. But in New Zealand, this is a thing which they call green prescription, where somebody, usually your GP, will assess you, will look at your physical activity, will look at your weight, will look at your medical condition, and then will come up with a plan, tell you what you should do, how intense that should be, for how many minutes you should do, and how many times a week you should do that. The key message is you should sit less, move more, and move more often. Right. Excuse me. Right, sorry. Okay. For some reason. Okay. So that is the key message. And I think this summarizes this thing very well. All physical activity has benefits. I will worry about what should I do, what shouldn't I do. Any physical activity will have benefits. Right, now, I think the most important part in this slide is what I have already shown you. Physical activity is your first line of defense against so many things. It is not your medicine. It is not your heart bypass surgery. It is not you having stents done to your heart. It is your first line of defense to reduce mortality. First line of defense against the bigger killers, cardiovascular disease and cancers. Many disabling conditions like diabetes, dementia, depression, different musculoskeletal problems, poor quality of life, the feeling of not feeling well, the feeling of that I can't do a lot of things. And as I said, there are links with ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer, prostate cancer, and lung cancer. Now, I think this set of really summarizes how or why physical activity is so important. Like, it is healthier, it is safer, it is cheaper, and it is more effective and efficient than drugs for preventing disease. And I put a question mark in front of treating. I'll come to that in a minute. Why is it more effective and efficient? So I'll give you the example that I gave you regarding the depression. I'll have to go back quite a few slides, but I really want to show that slide. Okay, so for depression, it could work up to 50%, which is a lot. Even if there was a medicine which was to work that much for depression, that medicine is still going to be, or even if it was to work better than 50%, let's say 60%, that medicine would still be inferior than exercise, because exercise will give you so many benefits. It is not that if you do exercise, it is only going to work for depression. It is going to work for your heart, for your lungs, for your tummy, for your knees, for your depression, for so many things, something that you just cannot beat with drugs. Now, again, I really like this slide because I think this is the key message. Key message is not to get bogged down into the numbers, not to bog down into the type of exercise that you do, or do the calorie counting, or how many calories have you spent. Move more often. All physical activity has benefits. Now, this is the bit which I said right at the beginning when I gave a disclaimer that this lecture does not replace professional advice. I am going to talk a little bit about this, but I think there is a very small group of people who will need professional advice. Majority of the people don't need to say their doctor, and they can do exercises. I'll give you an example. Let's say if you are living in a two-story house, you will be going up and down your stairs at least a few times a day. So you don't need to see a doctor just to do it more often. Just to do, if you're doing it 4 times a day, you can do it 6 times a day, and you don't need to really see anybody to do that. Similarly, there are so many things that you can do, but there will be some people who will fall into that category where they should seek medical advice. And it depends on various factors, their current activity level, and how bad is the disease that they're talking about, and what are they planning to do. So if somebody had a heart attack in the immediate period afterwards, if you're unfortunate enough in that position, you shouldn't be exercising. Although in the long term, exercise will be one part of your rehabilitation. Exercise would be one part of your disease management. Exercise would be one part of your treatment. So at a certain stage, this may not be advisable. Similarly, if you had a knee replacement 2 days ago, you shouldn't go out and start doing a 10K run 2 days down the line. So very few people will need some advice. For vast majority of the people, exercise is great for you and you don't need to see anybody to do that. But do understand that there will be some people who will be better off seeking some advice first. Now, everybody asked me whether this talk is related to COVID. I'm going to come to that in a minute. We know that non-white people have higher mortality from COVID. We have heard a lot of horror stories, especially from places where there are a lot of Muslims, like London, where places had run out of burial spaces and where people were being buried in sort of longer graves so that all these coffins were being put side to side. We knew we had higher mortality. And then after the first wave was nearly over, the figures that we have, that if you are a Pakistani male, you are 3.5 times more likely to die from COVID compared to a white English male. But I think you got to understand this. This higher mortality is not new. We always had higher mortality. We always had higher risk of diabetes. We always had higher risk of heart disease. We always had higher risk of obesity. We always had lesser level of physical activity. We never addressed these things. And guess what? COVID came and we had the same thing again. However, there is still some excess mortality from COVID. Even considering our baseline excess mortality compared to the regular population, regular white English population, we still have some excess mortality. And we still don't know the answer. The medical science doesn't have the answer. This is where my guess is, that this is vitamin D deficiency and what we eat. And I think that is what has killed us more, even more than the previous higher mortality. Now, if you listen to the experts, majority of them would recommend taking vitamin D regularly. This is contrary to the official advice. The official advice is for white people not to take vitamin D in summertime because they think they will get enough vitamin D from the sun. But non-white people are not as efficient in making vitamin D as the white people are. Secondly, our dress code is also very different. So more than likely, we will have much more coverage of our skin, even if we are out and about in the sun. The third argument is that these normal vitamin levels have been figured out more than half a century ago. And many people argue that these values should be redefined. And I can tell you from my experience as a doctor, that I don't remember anybody who had their vitamin D tested and they were not low, unless they were taking supplements regularly. And this is one reason why I think we should take it regularly. If you are still concerned, and some people are, my younger brother was when I advised him, so I asked him to get his blood test done. And guess what? It was low. It is very likely that your vitamin D levels would be low. Even if the medical science does not prove the link between vitamin D and COVID, but if your vitamin D was low, would it not make sense to replace your vitamin D and bring it to the normal levels? I think that's two things: improve your immunity and take supplements, especially vitamin D. I have already spoken about taking these live biocultures, and I have already spoken about taking foods which can enhance your immunity. One thing that I forgot to mention in the exercise column, the exercise also increases your immunity. So it is good on all fronts. Okay. Now there will be question answer session after this, but I'm going to answer some questions, some common questions that people might have. It is too late today. Can I do it tomorrow? No, you got to do it today. Look, when I finish this lecture, whenever I finish this, it would have finished 10 minutes earlier than planned. So you would have 10 minutes extra. So you have no excuse. People have done research on whether any physical activity is beneficial. Physical activity of 2 minutes shows physiological benefit. So if you can't exercise for 1 hour because it is too late, do it for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, do something. Just go up a flight of stairs and go down. That wouldn't take even 2 minutes. Do something. I don't have a gym membership, place, or price for treadmill in the house. No, you don't need all that. All you need is something. Sorry, I'm just going to stop somebody's video. All you need is really a place which is twice the length of your prayer mat. That's all you need to do exercise. If you don't have gym membership, no, you don't need gym membership to do exercise. If you have one, fantastic. If you don't, if you've got a track or a road outside your house, you can go out and have a walk or have a run. Even if not that, you can do it inside your home. There are many exercises you can do at your home. It is too cold, too hot, rainy, snowy outside. Can I do it some other time? No, you got to do this. If you don't exercise for these reasons, in this country, you will not be exercising for 9 months a year. I don't mind going out in cold or hot weather, rainy weather, snowy weather, but I appreciate that some people don't want to go out. Even if you don't go out, you can do exercises at home. My exercise sport buddy isn't available today. Can I do it some other time? No, you must find some activity. I always like activity that you can do with your friends. I like the social aspect of that exercise. And if I'm doing it on my own, I get bored. But you must have something that you can do on your own so that if your buddy is not available, at least you're not doing exercise. I have diabetes, heart disease, back pain. Should I avoid exercise? Absolutely not. A part of your rehabilitation for majority of these exercises, for majority of these conditions, is actually to do regular exercise. What you got to do is tailor it to your limitations. If you exercise in diabetes, it improves insulin sensitivity. So your control of diabetes becomes better. It is good for your coronary conditioning. So it is good for your heart. It is good for strengthening your back muscles. So it improves your back pain. If anything, you should be doing more regularly. I am a very busy person. I don't have an hour every day. No, we are not asking you to do an hour every day. Do something every day. If you're not doing nothing, then even 5 minutes every day is better what you're doing currently. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Quitting smoking, losing weight, exercise, even changing your diet, it is not easy. And is it quick? No, there is no quick fix in this. It will happen slowly, but surely it will happen if you stick to it. I am 65 or over 65, or you can put 75 in there. I'm over 75 and already retired. Surely I don't have to do any exercise. No, nothing could be further from truth. No, you got to do this. In fact, it is in that category where you find the most benefit. Right, let me show you the next one. Right, 1 minute. Where is the next slide? Okay, sorry. Right, so this is a slide. This slide doesn't cover people who start late exercise. This covers people who have been doing physical activity all their life. But if you look at the early years, look at this part of the graph, there's actually no difference. Even if you're a couch potato as a child or you're exercising regularly, there's no difference. The moment you are about to enter into your adult life, you start widening of the differences. And look how wide is the difference in your older days. So if you're not doing exercise regularly, at the very soon after the age of retirement, around here, you are going to hit that threshold of disability, which means you're not going to be able to enjoy your retirement. You're going to be dependent on others. You're going to lose a lot of your function. So your best bet is to start exercising. Earlier, the better. Now, if you think you are 75 or 80 and you're too old for that, let me introduce you to this person. This guy, his name is Fauja Singh. Okay, I'll come to him in a minute. If I was to give you the names of people who have completed a marathon in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, it has thousands of names. It is a very long list. And mind you, a full marathon is about 40 kilometers long. The number of people who have completed a full marathon, not started the marathon, just from the start line, they have gone the whole hog and done the full marathon. Number of people in their 90s who have completed a full marathon is about, I think, 6 or 7. And this guy is the top of them. His name is Fauja Singh, and he ran London Marathon at the age of 101. He was 101 years of age when he ran and completed London Marathon. Now, you would think that this guy, must have very good genes. He's from Indian Punjab. I don't think his gene pool is much different to, let's say, my gene pool. Or you must be thinking that he must be doing it all his life. No, his first complete marathon was at the age of 89. He did his first marathon at the age of 89. Not only that, no age is exempt from physical activity. The biggest benefits are when you're older. And the other thing is, we are not saying that everybody must run a marathon. I'm just giving you an example that everything is doable. You should find an exercise that you can tailor to your needs. And I'll come to that in a minute. But one thing you must do, exercise regularly. Now, this is what people find as barriers. So people who have got long-term conditions of any sort, whether it is chronic pain or a heart condition or diabetes, what are their barriers? Pain before, during, or after physical activity. As I've already said, physical rehabilitation is the best part to improve your pain. And even if it doesn't improve your pain, which sometimes it doesn't, it will improve your function. It will improve your mood. It will improve your heart. It will improve your lungs. It will have so many benefits that you should do it. Feeling tired before, during, or after physical activity because you're not used to that. Same as breathless, lack of motivation. It has so many benefits that I wonder what else would you need to be motivated to do it. Not knowing what types of activities are right for them, their condition. I think I have already addressed this to some extent, and I'll come to that in a minute as well. You don't have to stop doing anything just because you can't find your right activity. There's no such thing like a right activity. The right activity is what you can do. Okay, fear of hurting themselves, no, it shouldn't hurt you. Lack of suitable facilities, you don't need suitable facilities. As I said, any strip of floor that is twice the length of your prayer mat is all you need. Lack of time, you don't need to spend hours in the gym. You can do it for a few minutes every day, you should do, and other things. Okay, what should and shouldn't I do? Again, I am not going to be able to cover this in a lot of detail, but I'm going to give you some guiding principles. Okay, the first is the intensity, how intense it should be. Now remember this. This has to be within your limitations. Your limitations could be because of your shortness of breath, that you get breathless. It may be because of your heart. It may be because of your bad back. It may be because you haven't exercised for ages. Even if you don't have any diagnosis, you should stay within your limitations. If you can walk for 30 minutes or run for 30 minutes, and then you're completely knackered and not able to walk next day, you should perhaps do it for 20 minutes. And rather than not being able to walk for next day and not being able to exercise for the whole week, if you do 20 minutes but do it every day, you will be able to do a lot more. Same as the type of exercise, which I don't think I have written here. Type of exercise, again, I think that matters less as opposed to whether you're doing it or not. Regularity. I think this is more important than the type of exercise. You got to do it every day. Unless you're running a marathon, then I don't expect you to do that every day, perhaps once a month. But for majority of the mortals like me, who are not doing a lot of exercise, regularity is the key. And whatever you are doing today, if you do it regularly, there's no way that few months down the line, you will not be able to do a lot more than that. Okay, this is the other thing, rate of increase. So you have not disciplined yourself. You are doing whatever you are doing within your limitation, and you are doing it regularly, but then you want to increase it, you want to improve. The rate of increase depends on various different factors, your starting condition, what age are you. It will be different for a teenager and different for somebody who's in his 70s, and on your weight, on your medical conditions. But as a general rule, the older you are, the slower should be your rate of increase. So for the older people, I will say, whatever you start doing, stick to that for 4 weeks and then increase it by about 5 to 10% every week. That seems very slow, but 6 months down the line, you will be doing a lot more. Okay. There are many apps, many videos, many YouTube videos to tell you what to do. There is an app that I use which allows you to do sort of, what is the word, small little things in your home, just at one place. And it has function where you can decide whether you want to do 10 exercises or 30 or whatever number. And for how long do you want to do one exercise, whether you want to do it for 30 seconds or 60 seconds or more or less, and how much gap do you want to give between the exercises. And that is also very flexible. It's a very useful app. And I don't think I've got a link here, but I can certainly share the link with anybody who wants it. Professional advice. I think few people fall in that category. I have already alluded to that. Some people will need professional advice, and they should seek professional advice. Right, so summary so far. Quit smoking. There is no reason to smoke. There is no benefit in smoking. Lose weight, eat healthy, and take supplements. Increase your physical activity. For those of you who think that this is our destiny, I quote you the verse from Quran. Laysa lil insani illa ma sa. Man can have nothing but what he strives for. To do the struggle, to strive for something is not only our duty, this is our pride. And I think we should make every effort to improve our lives in terms of health, in terms of everything. And health is an amana with us, and we need to look after ourselves. Okay, so that is the end of the talk, and I am now happy to take any questions if you have.
Thank you, Zahid Bhai. That was a brilliant talk, very, very useful, and some very useful tips that you've given there. The simple things that people can do, and it's very clear, mashallah. Thank you. Thank you very much for the talk. I would like to invite some questions. I think the easiest way, if I may, is if
Sure.
you can send me your, if you could send the questions on the chat, I will then pose them in order to Dr. Wahid, and it'll be the easiest way to do it. So please do go ahead and ask some questions, and you know, Dr. Wahid Zahid Bhai will answer those questions for you.
All right. Thank you, Sahil Bhai. Although I have tried to answer the common questions that people have, but I'm sure there will be more questions. I couldn't touch everything in detail because, you know, each of these topics are massive topics, whether you talk about diet and nutrition and weight loss and smoking and exercise. These are major big topics. And one thing I forgot to say, I am very happy to talk to anybody individually if they want me to, especially that motivational interviewing. That's not a group thing. It's a very individual thing. It is obviously at no cost to you. I will be very happy if somebody would benefit from me talking to them. If you have anything even later on, majority of the people on this talk, they would have my they would have my phone number and WhatsApp number.
Right, I've got a question. So, from Rahana, can I ask everybody to mute themselves? If I could ask everybody to, yeah. Yes, I was just saying that the question from Rahana Khan to everybody is, can you please tell us about the exercises you referred to in your talks?
Okay, so there is an app. Let me see if I can. I just forgot to put a sort of link in the talk, but I can dig it out on my phone, and then I can just show it on the screen.
Okay, that'll be very useful. I think the story.
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If you search stretches, This is what I use. And I said there are many ways to skin a cat. Is it visible?
Stretching exercises at home, flexibility training. Maybe you can perhaps
I can send a link to anybody.
you
If you are on CICC platform, I will share a link there. But I have invited many people who are not on the CICC platform, and I'm happy to share the link. Now, this is available on iPhone as well as on this phone. It is such a brilliant app.
Okay.
Now, can people not start putting lines everywhere? And I don't know how people are able to do that, but some people are. It is available for both Apple devices as well as Android devices.
Okay.
It is very customizable. You tailor it to your needs, exercise, what you want to do, for how long, how many, the interval between the exercises and everything. And at the end, if you have put in your parameter, it will tell you how many calories you have spent. It has a calendar in it, and you can actually have a glance and see how regular you have been in doing these exercises. It's a very good one. So I have obviously developed my own thing, and I have made a little video of that, which is about half an hour video. Although I don't mind sharing it, I think the best thing is find your own thing, what you want to do. But I'm happy to share either. So certainly share a link for, I'll share a link for this, but I'll show that again. If you search stretches in your phone, Apple or Android, this is the sort of app that you will find. There are plenty. This is the one that I have tried, and it is excellent and free.
Thanks very much for that. Another question that's come in is from Wael Arabi. And the question is, I have a question regarding the importance of staying or being hydrated during physical exercise, physical activities. So the question is about the importance of staying or being hydrated during physical activities.
Sheikh Wael, mashallah, so nice to hear from you. So delighted that you are here. Hydration is very good. The best drink that we have is water, and it is very important. And Sheikh Wael, he is from Saudi Arabia, so all the hot countries. When I was working in Pakistan, the incidence of stones, kidney stones, stones in urinary bladder, it was very high. And partly because if you are living in a hot climate, you are going to be dehydrated, and that increases the risk of getting kidney stones and various other things. So keeping yourself hydrated is very good, and that is one thing that you should do, especially if you're exercising, you must. And there is a hadith of Prophet Muhammad SAW that I can only tell you the translation. That water is like gold before meal, like silver in between during the meal, and like I think copper or a brass after the meal. So having water before you start your meal is very good, and certainly keeping yourself hydrated is excellent.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question is, thanking you from the talk. It's from Han. Thank you for the talk. Can you advise on exercise videos at home for my elderly mum in Urdu? She's 75. So advice on exercise video at home for elderly mum in Urdu, age 75.
Okay, I think this is tricky. When you see these videos, these are usually made by professionals, and you will see them doing things that the ordinary bloke or girl wouldn't be able to do. Yeah, if they are stretching themselves, they'll be touching their nose with the floor, which most of us can't do. And there's not a lot out there that is tailored to elderly people. There are some out there. I must say, I have not looked at that myself. When my parents were alive, may Allah bless their soul, they have both died a few years ago. When they were alive, my biggest difficulty, especially with their mom, was to actually persuade her to do anything. But I eventually did manage to persuade her to do things. And one of the things that I said to her that, it is a bit like doing a standing push-up. So when you do the push-up, you are lying on the floor and lifting yourself up. But instead of actually doing that, you are leaning against the wall, standing very close to the wall, and you're just pushing yourself off. Because, at 75, she's not going to be able to do a push-up. Well, she might be, but that wouldn't be the starting point. And then the other thing is she could lie on the floor and sort of cycle with her legs, keeping her legs in the air, a bit like the cycling movement. And that will strengthen her legs, that will strengthen her tummy muscles, a bit of cardio at that age. And There are in this app, there are many exercises that you can do even at older age. You can do. I think the problem with the elderly people and our interaction with them is we expect them to do too much too quick. She won't be able to do too much too quick if she has not been doing it regularly. So I think the only thing she got to do is do something and do it daily. And the other thing I used to say to my mom, just go up a flight of stairs and come down. And I said, if you go up and picked something or did something, that is not counted. That's your day-to-day activity. What you want to do is something more than that. And if your mom can climb stairs and she can do, and let's say she can't do the whole thing. Let's say she can only go up 4 steps, then come down. If she can do that extra, not what she normally does, but extra 4 steps in the morning, 4 steps in the evening, she could start that way. So it is literally any physical activity. She could do walk. Walk is a very good activity. And I still say to people that walk is for people who are in their 60s and not 60s, 70s and 80s. But she's already in her 70s. And the walk is actually not a bad activity as such. It is still a pretty good activity. I think the important thing is she should not be pushing herself too far, or for that matter, what I was doing, trying to push them too far. And she should be regular. These are the two things. And for regularity, I think what matters most is that they find something that they can do indoors. Because a lot of the times, and this is what I found with my mom, that she would say it is too hot outside, or it is too cold outside, it is too sunny, it is too early, it is too late. So if she can do something at home, that is excellent. Don't try to make it too complicated for her. Don't buy her machines and dumbbells and these things. Keep it simple. The simple things where she can spend good few minutes every day, but do it every day is the answer, is the solution. Not necessarily asking her to do some complicated exercises. And if my experience with my mom is anything to go by, you'll have to encourage her fairly repeatedly. Our cultural values are such. Our parents, they sort of gave up on life after they are 60.
Okay, thank you very much for that very comprehensive answer. Okay, another question is from a sister who's saying, I'm actually very weak and skinny. How do I become healthy? So someone who's already quite sort of thin already, and
Okay,
how does one become healthy? So it's a slightly different question.
slightly different question. Um, I am not sure whether I will call being skinny a problem as long as you're healthy. But you said you're very weak. Okay, so that is probably a problem. My BMI when I started medical college, I think was 18. And this guy, this 101-year-old guy that I showed earlier during the talk, his BMI is also, I think, around 17 or 18. So by any stretch of imagination, he is skinny, but you wouldn't call him weak. If he can run 40 kilometers at the age of 101, he is certainly not weak. So I think it is the weakness bit that you need to address. Don't necessarily worry about putting on the pounds. Uh, and for, for this, I think, first of all, if you have a medical condition, then that should be found out. Okay, so see your GP, get your workup done. If you have got deficiency of any iron, vitamins, vitamin D, or anything, sort of make sure that you make that up. Improve your nutrition. Uh, Majority of our people here are not smokers, but if somebody is smoking, they should quit smoking and start doing some exercise regularly. Now, you have realized that I've skipped one of the 4 things because obviously you've already mentioned that you are quite skinny, so obesity is not your problem. But I think start doing exercises regularly. Uh, if you are functional, if you can run, if you can do things, then actually being skinny is healthy. And people like me, it is a struggle to lose weight. So if you're otherwise healthy, then I don't think being skinny is an issue. So look at your diet, get yourself checked, see whether there are any reasons for you to be weak, any deficiencies, any trace element deficiencies, or any vitamin deficiencies, make them up. Uh, I would suggest take supplements as well. Obviously, I don't know your age, but I am giving supplements to even my children, and they are the children's supplements. And do exercise regularly. Find an exercise that suits you. Regarding the exercise, you can't do what the girl next door is doing because she may be a professional athlete. You also cannot do what you were doing 20, 30 years ago because times would have changed. So you got to find an exercise that is within your current limitations. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Another question is similar, sort of, just you mentioned a minute ago about supplements. So, Sahar is asking, what about some supplements? What recommendations do you have for supplements?
Okay, I will tell you what I take. The medical community, unfortunately, has not come to a conclusion yet, although there are emerging signs and more people are convinced that vitamin D did play a role in mortality from COVID. With the COVID, it's a strange thing. Some people get such a mild form, they don't even know what they have got it. It happened to one of my friend's daughter. She was tested as a doctor, she was tested for the antibody and it was positive, which means she got it, but she didn't know that. And some people die from this. So we don't know what actually makes that difference between the two people. A lot of the people are being convinced that it is vitamin D, and the people who are getting convinced that it is vitamin D, they are taking more than the current official recommendation, which is 400 to 800 international units per day. That is the official recommendation. I can tell you what I take. I take 4,000 units every day. Many people, white-skinned people, they take 1 to 2,000 units every day. My vitamin D level was historically low, and I knew it many years ago when I was unwell. Recently it was checked and it is normal. So that 4,000 units is doing its job adequately for me. It's not doing too much. It has kept my levels fairly decent. But that is what I am doing. In addition to that, I am taking a tablet which is a combination of multivitamin and these trace elements. So I actually have the picture saved somewhere in my phone. Right, let me see if I can. I can tell you what I do, and then you can sort of figure out what you want to do. So this is one of the things. I have bought it online. I'll see whether this is actually, whether people can see this. It says multivitamins and minerals A to Z. This is a company called Simply Health. There are many of these around there. You can buy whatever you fancy. When I was looking at these, I found this to have most of these trace elements. You know, when you get into these things, what happened 3 years ago was that I was quite unwell and I had loads of tests and nothing came out. There was nothing apart from low vitamin D, nothing came out as abnormal. And my unwellness just went away on its own in 3 weeks' time. But during those 3 weeks, I couldn't even drive. So I looked a lot about these things, about supplements and all that. And actually, these purchases are from that time. I've not been very regular in taking them, but since the start of this pandemic, I've been taking them more regularly. But so this is one of the things that I do. In addition to that, I take selenium and zinc and vitamin C supplements. That is a lot, but that's what I have started doing during this pandemic because, as you could imagine, being male, above 50 years of age, being non-white, and working at the front of the front. So I do anesthesia and intensive care and chronic pain. And there was a chance that I may be redeployed to intensive care. So if I was there and still doing theater work, I am at the front line. So needless to say that I was a bit anxious. So I have started taking these supplements fairly regularly.
Thanks very much. There's a question about what was the name of the app, and I think Brother Fawad has answered that question. Is stretching exercises at home, flexibility training.
Yeah. Those people who are on the CICC will see if I can share a link with the app. And those people who are not on the CICC, majority would have my number. Please send me a text and I'll send you a link. I have shown the picture. And yeah, please by all means see that. This is the only one that I have tried.
Just move on to the next question. There's a question, a very good question actually, a very, very good question. COVID-19 didn't play that much of havoc in Pakistan as it did in Europe in terms of deaths. So how is it like our immunity is lower than that of the Europeans, or what can be the reason for that? I think that's a really good question.
Okay, there are two things to the question that I'm going to allude to. First, we don't know the answer. I will give a little bit more detail about this, but to be honest with you, we don't know the answer. Our immunity is probably better than the European people. Many years ago, there was a guy, a professor of, I think, immunology. He came on television and he said this thing on television. He said our obsession with cleanliness is reducing our immunity. So because we had so much exposure in Pakistan, I think we certainly have more tolerance or more immunity to these things. What I cannot explain is why there is then big second surge in India, third or fourth surge in Iran, and although China doesn't have a second wave, what they did, no other country could have done that. We really don't understand exactly why that is the case, why Pakistan hasn't seen a second wave. Part of me was thinking, well, this was because the smart lockdown that was initiated there by the government. But then UK has also done something very similar and hasn't seen anything like that. And some people say, oh, Pakistan is not doing enough testing. But whatever Pakistan is doing, they were actually doing the same thing during the first part of the peak. And obviously, since I graduated from Pakistan, I have a lot of doctor friends. And I know during the peak time, the hospitals were filling, private, government hospitals alike, they were filling. And the situation is nowhere near as bad now as it was at that time. So somehow Pakistan has managed to avoid a second peak for reasons not known to anybody that I've spoken to. And I can't put my finger on that either. If it was that we were different and immune and because we have a different atmosphere, it is the same people across in India and across in Iran. Iran has, I think, seen its fourth wave now, and India has seen a massive rise, second highest number of COVID cases all across the globe in India. We have seen nothing like that, but we really don't know why.
Okay, thank you very much. Another
Right.
question from Abu Hamid is after long walking, what shall I eat? Jazakallah. So after a long walk, what's the best thing to eat?
Uh, okay, so the best thing to eat is what you would eat, what you should eat anyway, which is vegetables, fruit, poultry, eggs, and all these things. Now, I think Weil has very kindly raised this thing about the hydration. Yes, hydration is very important. Now, there is nothing specific. There are diets which can improve your endurance and performance and all that, but these are more for people who are sort of serious or professional, sort of trying to get these three packs and all that. But that was not really the purpose of what I have spoken today. And the purpose of what I have spoken today is really to reduce these what is the word, risk factors, to reduce these calamities, to reduce this doom and gloom that we have in our lives. And for that, anything that you normally would eat and would be considered healthy, you can take it off for a walk as well. There is nothing special as such.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Another question is from Sister Gulson, and she's asking, she's thanking you for your advice. And what about breathing exercises? How can that help lose weight? Breathing exercises.
Uh, hmm. I am unsure whether breathing exercises can help you lose weight, but breathing exercises certainly can help you with a couple of things. One is your breathing stamina. So one of the things that I must say I stopped doing it now, but in the initial phase of the pandemic, I was doing it regularly with our kids. And we'll all stand together, we'll take a big deep breath, and then we'll hold it. I'll turn the stopwatch on, and then we will see who is the first one to go, who is the second one, who is the third one. So sort of taking a deep breath and breath holding. This is one of the best strategy to prevent community acquired pneumonia. And if you are unwell, the best thing, this is what we call chest physio, deep breathing exercises. This is the best strategy against this pneumonia, which develops when your lungs are not expanding very well. The bases of your lungs collapse and you develop pneumonia. In intensive care units, we call it ventilator-associated pneumonia because obviously you're on a breathing machine, so you're not breathing on your own, so your lungs don't expand that well. But these will be good for these two things, to develop your breathing tolerance and to combat any sort of chest infections. I'm not sure whether this will help with the weight loss though, but if you are exercising, you will be breathing harder as well. So one of the criteria that, is your exercise good for your heart and lungs? So the criteria is your heart rate should become a bit faster, your respiratory rate should become a bit faster, and you should be sweating a little bit. If you're doing these three things, then it would be cardiovascular conditioning. and you will be breathing a bit faster. So that would be good overall as an exercise to lose weight and for your breathing. Sohail bhai, you're muted.
Thank you for that answer. This is no, it's okay. I'm unmuted now. Another really good question um, is from Khan to everybody is cycling for 1 hour better than walking for 1 hour? It's not as fun.
Okay.
It's not as fun, I can tell you that much.
Okay, so brother, you should join our cycling club. CACC has got a cycling club, and we do quite interesting things, usually for more than 1 hour. um, okay, cycling does have some advantages over walking. And one thing that you do is you're not putting weight on your hips and knees, which is an advantage as well as a disadvantage. So your sort of knee ligaments and these things don't get strong, but then you don't hurt your knees and hips as well if somebody has got arthritis. Uh, you are probably spending more calories in cycling. Unless you're cycling every day, you should perhaps add into the mix walking as well. They're both good. Cycling perhaps slightly better on few fronts. But I think the important thing is that you do something regularly. In fact, if I have time, Sohail bhai, I can actually go back to the slide where there is a comparison between cycling and walking. Shall I do that?
Sure, go straight ahead. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, right. Right, so here you can see the comparison between cycling and walking. Right, where is walking? Okay, so slightly better. As you can see, cycling is at the lowest part. So it has got 3 single stars. So, out of 3 stars is, what is the word, low effect. But improvement in balance walking has very minimal effect. So cycling is slightly better.
Okay, that's good. It looks like that concludes the questions. I think that yeah, I just wanted to say that my mother immediately listened to your advice and she's been doing some stretches.
Oh, excellent, excellent. She has made my day.
And she also says that she says that it's very important not to make excuses. So
Yeah, she has made my day, Sohail bhai. She has made my day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, she's in front of me and she's just asked me to say that. So it's a very good.
That's very good. That's very kind of her.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up now. Once again, I'd just like to thank Zahid Bhai for a really excellent talk. I mean, we've had so many comments and questions, and actually, there's been a lot of very positive feedback. A lot of interest, and thank you very much.